Hey folks, me Brian again, obviously, same day, a couple minutes later. This is my video on my GM musings. I try to break this my video apart from campaign review to GM musings to module review, and we'll see how that works out as far as, is that helpful rather than me talking for half an hour, 45 minutes. So, the Sphere of Silence. The party had intended to cast it on the sword of the guard at the Sacred Stone, not Sacred Stone, the Feathergale Spire entry hall. And at first, I didn't really have an issue with that. Focusing, D&D is fairly loose when it comes to stuff like that. So I had no issue with that at first. But and then I went back and was thinking. In fact, I got a thing on the prequel about what happens if you cast silence on an object. Because if you cast light on an object and you sheath it, or you put it in a pocket or whatever, the light goes away because the radiation from the light does not permeate through the materials, right? So the opposite of light is darkness. If you did a darkness spell on a sword and you sheathed it, would the darkness go away? Well, I figure if you sheathed the sword that had light on it, there might be some light, seeping out around either the seam, maybe, or at the top of the sheath or scabbard, top of the scabbard where the sword goes in. There might be some leaking out. Yeah, that would make sense to me. So if it was darkness, the opposite, reverse, electromagnetic radiation, if you want to call it that, I don't care. Same concept though, right? It's radiating in reverse, right? So there'd be some seeping out. Okay, so silence is a negative force. The positive force would be noise, like static. So if you had a spell that casts static throughout a spherical area, so that you can't, well, that'd be the same thing, you couldn't hear anything because it's static. But the idea is it's producing sound, right? Vibrations in the airwaves. Well, if you sheath that, what's going to happen? The vibrations through the airwaves are still going to occur because they're going to transfer to the materials. It would be dampened, I would imagine. And I started to discuss with myself, how much the damage is. Just that one guy now is got static all around him, or is it going to go a little further? I didn't get much further than that. Because reverse, the silence then, if you see the silence, is it going to suck up sound from, that 5-foot radius? So I figured at least the guy who's carrying the object is going to be in silence, the cone of silence kind of thing. So that's what I had decided. When we first sat down, one of the players brought this whole thing about this book says you can't, well, it doesn't say you can't cast silence on an object, but the statement in the spell is you cast at a location. And another player mentioned, yeah, all throughout, 5th edition stuff, there's a difference between objects and locations. They mean things. Words mean things. I got a whole talk about that. So we decided that, in fact, it was not cast on the sword. It was cast on a spot where the sword was. And so when they tried to sheath the sword and nothing changed, they figured that that's what happened. And so they dropped it. We didn't have to worry about them walking through the whole tower with the silence around them. Holy cow. Okay. The flying encounter with, shoot, I forgot again. It's not a Minotaur because it's flying. Manticore, there we go. The Manticore. Flying encounter with Manticore. There should be some sort of charge attack feature factor for aerial combat, because the Manticore came flying down and attacked one of the hippogriffs. He should have just flown right through it, claws into its side, taking it down. But the mechanics are you fly down, engage, and attack. So I've got to figure something about that. There's got to be some way where you just take him out, ram right into him, and there might be some shield rush kind of rule somewhere. I'll have to look that up because we've never really encountered that. But that's the concept I see in mind, him flying down, claws into the side of the beast, taking it down, take a bite out of its neck, maybe, that kind of thing. Almost like a grapple. That's something I need to look into. Oh, and that brought up a whole slew of things where Aloysius was going to grapple the Manticore and make it go prone, which would make it fall from the sky. No. Even if he grappled the Manticore, he'd have his arms around one leg. That's not going to do a damn thing. Oh, okay. Okay, Sandbox. Everybody says how Sandbox this is, and I like Sandbox play. I do, but it's not my world. It's Princes of the Apocalypse. So I don't have internalized all the stuff. Now I go through and I review and I read over and read over so it's familiar to me, so I can try and find spots where it is. But as you'll notice, stuff's written everywhere. So one of the problems that I'm finding in playing the Sandbox version of this is that I know something's going to happen. The players are doing something, and at a certain point, something's happening. And so I'm digging through, so I've got all that something ready. And while I'm doing that, the players are moving their minis around doing stuff. So I've got to pull them back, pull them back. That happened at least twice. Where I look up and everybody's going, "What's going on, guys? Wait!" Oh. So taking time to compensate for the sandboxiness, it can cause friction. We'll call it that. I did mention this a little bit in my campaign review on invisibility of the Drugar and their interval, and having to do things. And there's 3 outside and there's 3 in the mines. You can be invisible for an hour, short rest half hour to get it back. So technically, it should be 2 invisible at a time, off schedule by a half hour if I start thinking of the mathematics on it. But they've got to have some kind of drill kind of thing going on, and I just had to come up with that. That did cause an issue with, I was rolling dice to see when guard number 2 showed up. And if I kept rolling 1s and 2s instead of needing that 3 or 4 that I needed, it would take a long time for that second Drew guard to come up and find the dead one. So it'd be better to have a mechanic for it where every so often these guys are coming around. That kind of thing. But then we are talking about 10-second rounds, because technically we weren't in melee, but that's still the distance time factors we were still using was normal 30 feet kind of stuff. So wishy-washy kind of stuff. But I did roll that the second Drugar showed up right away. It was a third one that took a while to get to where they were doing stuff. Noise in the stairwell in the mines. I did mention this briefly in my campaign review as well. That Sabra opened up the doors to the lower level and actually went down half the flight of stairs, to landing, and then there's more stairs going down. She didn't ever go around the wall and see the stairs going down, because they're all turned. She thought there was just a room down there. But did you look around? She goes down the stairs. And this is one of those timing things. She was at the top of the stairs last time I saw her, and then we're doing stuff, and I look up, and she's at the bottom of the stairs. When did she move? Come on, guys. But anyway, so the doors are open, and there's fighting going on. Minotaur. So when after the shatters have gone, because the Minotaur, and you've got the guards, and you've got at least a bunch of monks, that kind of thing going on. So there's a fair amount of noise going on up there. I'll need to see how deep is it down to the second level, and sound waves and rotations and stuff like that. So I anticipate that the ogre, I believe he's in the room right below at the end of the stairs. I anticipate he would have heard something, and so there may be some prep time they get, and I may just do that just to give the players some trouble, because they are essentially walking through. Now I did have to admit, and I think I mentioned this in my campaign video, that the half-orc barbarian did get down low fighting the abbess. When he engaged with the Minotaur, the druid came up and did cure light wounds on him twice. Which brought him back up. And of course he's raging, and he's taking half damage, that kind of stuff. So, but there's all this noise going on upstairs. Is anybody downstairs hearing that? Because there's nobody really around him except for the Lich, and he doesn't care. Everybody else on top of it has pretty much been flushed out to this fight. that they went through. One thing left were the other gargoyles. So we'll see how that works out. Now, there's probably the guys in the kitchen still. The guys in the kitchen will still be there. So they may not even be aware, because they wouldn't have gone back to get them. They would have just gone to the dormitory and pulled everybody out of there. Okay. Advantage and flanking. Now, I know the rule in flanking is one on each side. And if you're using squares, it's easy to do. I use hexes, so my terminology, flanking is if you're on a side or a rear hex, not if you have two people opposite. So if you're on the side and your buddy's in front, buddy in front doesn't get an advantage, but this guy on the side would, because the opponent you're fighting is focusing on the one guy in front. That's how I would do the mechanics wise, and that's from some fantasy trip stuff with the whole hex grid and fighting in combat. Okay. I was getting a little confused because rogues get advantage if anybody's within 5 feet of the target. Doesn't matter if they're flanked or not. So there's a bit of combat going on with the Minotaur and the guys on. Actually, it was the two guards and the guys on. Would the guards be able to gang up on one guy and get advantage? Because the concept of I have to divide my attention between two targets is you have to divide your attention between two targets. It doesn't matter where they are, right? So one of the things I'm going to try and figure out a little bit better, because it was getting a little fuzzy. I'm going, maybe these guys should be having an advantage, and if so, then the other guys doing the same thing to them. Well, the party members doing the same thing to the temple cultists should probably get the same thing as well. The only person who was getting advantage was the rogue, and of course he's using his longbow, so he's shooting at people. He did have to arrange himself a few times, because I am a little bit stickler, because we're using meter hexes, not 5-foot hexes. Because the 5-foot hexes, yeah, you can shoot through a hex, that's not a problem. Meter hex, that's a little more iffy. So if you got straight line, you're okay. You can shoot between two people, kind of thing. But if you've got to dip into his hex, you have to roll to miss him first. That's the way I play. Works for spells as well, because there was the druid turned into a bear, was fighting the Drugar inside the dojo, and Sabra, who hasn't really been doing a lot of fighting, was because her protector was on the back. And do you want to do anything? What can she do? She can do Ray of Frost. Okay, she does a Ray of Frost. So she fired a Ray of Frost. She fumbled, rolled a 1. So instead of shooting over the bear into the giant Drugar, she shot the bear. That's how things happen. Okay, fighting through doorways. Now, yeah, I'm gritty. I'm a hex guy, board minis, that kind of stuff, right? So doors don't always line up directly on hexes. They just don't. So you have to kind of maneuver, and you can use a half a hex, and yes, you can, that kind of stuff. So generally, though, you either have one side of the door is inside who is lined up on one hex, and the other side is lined up on 2 hexes, or vice versa. So this caused a couple of issues early on when the abbess moved up to the doorway, because she popped the door open, and the party was in the room. Okay, is she in the doorway, so they can get 2 attacks on her, or is she outside the doorway where we can only get one guy through? And it got kind of complicated in there, especially when the Minotaur showed up and he's 3 hexes big. He's a giant figure. So it's one of those things of, how much room, where, who, because technically you could have 2 guys on both sides of the door, spearing at a 30-degree angle both ways. It's just one of those mechanics of the grid. Okay, squeezing by. There was a point where the Minotaur was in the hallway, and he's a 3 hex guy. So 2 of his hexes, the hallway I have are 2 hexes wide. And maybe I'll do a spiel sometime about, I know I have in the past, 10-foot hallways. Not realistic. Okay, so my hallways are generally 2 hexes wide. You get 2 guys in there, 6 feet. That's a wide hallway, right? Most normal hallways are, 1 meter wide, 3 feet, that kind of thing, down to doors and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so he's in there. He's filling 2 hexes, and he's got 3rd hex behind him. And then we've got the 2 guards are right behind him, right? Could one of the guards squeeze by him to get out in front of him? I'm thinking, yeah. Before I had a chance to actually execute that, party member moved up into that hex. So we didn't get to actually execute that. But that's my thinking is, I don't care if you're filling those 2 hexes, you squeeze by, and that applies also to all these one hex guys in the back, can a guy from the back squeeze through everybody, get in front? Because his initiative's higher than everybody else's, right? So I'm thinking he can do that. We'll have to experiment with that, see how it goes. Okay, Gargoyles. Whenever a player character sees stone statues, the first thing they think of is gargoyles. Now, if the stone statues look like gargoyles, come on, really? Especially when you have 5 statues, 3 of them look like humans, and 2 of them look like gargoyles. Talk about giveaway. So there are, in fact, 3 gargoyles in the garden and 2 in the open causeway. So ask me, what do these statues look like? Well, the ones in the causeway, I tried to be as vague as possible, saying, the humanoid shape, and they've got a face like the gilded masks, which is good. That's generic enough, I think. I was going to say at first, they look like demonic images. Because if you looked at a gargoyle, it looked demonic, right? Well, so it's one of those, you don't want to just give it away, but I mean, what can you do? Gargoyles do not look like human statues. They just don't. Okay. PC actions during GM distractions. This happened a couple of times, and I mentioned, I think, in my campaign thing, where they've got a plan. Go up the stairs, unlock the door, go inside. Okay, I've got a plan. Party's out there, guard comes up. Well, I've got to figure out the guard. Is he invisible? Can he be large at the same time? That kind of stuff. Mechanics of him. While I'm figuring this out and figuring out who he's going to attack, I look up and all of the party's inside. Whoa, guys, whoa. So, that can be a bit of a tension. Didn't cause much problem. We just had to back up just once, maybe twice. Because the PCs, if you're not giving them direction or showing them something happening, they will just go. And if you're actually focused on doing something yourself, you don't know they're going. Well, it was a fun time. A bunch of role play up front, a bunch of fighting at the end. I think everybody had a good time. I know I did. I was expecting the Abbess to really kick their ass, though. Not as bad as they did last time. It was only 2nd level last time, but still. She really should have done more, I think. But the dice do what the dice do. Roll well. Ciao.